Congregational Church here in Concord, where no matter who you are, where you are on your life's journey, you're welcome here in this place. Just a couple of announcements this morning to begin. The first is that we have our Jazz Sanctuary service today at 1 o'clock, which you can join here in person, on Zoom, or on Facebook. And we hope you'll join us for that. We're going to be talking about the jazz of righteous anger. And you may or may not be able to see a particular someone in the front pew here as Jesus, so it's not to be missed. Also, just to note that the virtual Lenten luncheons are continuing that are hosted by the Interfaith Council, and the information for that is in the bulletin if you would like to join in on those. Also, we have a congregational meeting next Sunday, March 27th. And we invite all members to join us for that. We have some big things to discuss and to be in discernment about together. And finally, just want to share with folks on Zoom, because they can't see all of you, who's here in person. So I won't have everybody's name, but we're trying to get everybody. So we have Tim Wildman, and Sarah Nichols, and Kelly Heath, and Pam and Frank Spain, and Susan Losey, and a bunch of lovely guests with us this morning. So we're grateful that you are all here, and grateful that you are here on Zoom as well as on Facebook. With all of that, I'm going to invite us to prepare our hearts and our minds for worship as we listen to our prelude. Let us now take a moment of silence to set our intentions for worship this morning, remembering that an intention is essentially a focus. So we invite you to choose a focus for yourself for worship this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Would you join with me in the call to worship? Loving God of power and justice and peace, in our broken world we seek a new order, where there is courage to speak truth to power. We seek a new order, where there is mutual support in church and community. We seek a new order, where there is abundant time for healing. We seek a new order, where there is peace and freedom for all. And now join me in prayer as we bring ourselves into God's presence. Holy God, we, like Peter, often turn our backs on you. Forgive us and show us a new way to live, walking boldly and passionately toward you. Amen.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to invite us now to join together in singing the first hymn, number 196, if you're following in the New Century Hymnal, which is titled When, Like the Woman at the Well. And we're going to invite Annie to play through it for us first, and then we will share together in all 5 verses, And as always, we invite people to rise in body or spirit as is comfortable to you. Hear now Psalm 24 from the Reverend Benjamin Chavis Psalter, which was written in McCain, North Carolina, at the McCain Prison Hospital, and is titled, "We Are Patient." O God, our God, we are patient. Although we are experiencing an agony of despair, we shall be patient. Awaiting thy judgment, we stand at thy right hand, steadfast in our faith to thee. We shall endure the torment of dehumanization, for our perseverance is essential in these trying times. Although the transgressors are building empires, we are patient, because they shall surely fall. O God, our God, we are as patient as Job. Here ends the Psalter lesson.
Hear now Psalm 17 in the Voice translation. Listen, O Eternal One, to my cry for justice. These words of mine are true. Turn your ear toward me. Announce that I am free of all the charges against me. Only you can see into my heart to know that to be true. Treat me with fairness. Look at me with justice. You have searched me, my heart and soul, awakened me from dreaming and tested me. You found nothing against me. I have resolved not to sin in what I say. The path violent men have followed, I will not travel. Violence is not my way. Your ways and your voice now guide my journey. I will press on, moving steadfastly forward along your path. I will not look back. I will not stumble. I'm crying aloud to you, O true God, for I long to know your answer. Hear me, O God, hear my plea, hear my prayer for help. Put your marvelous love on display for all to see. Liberators of those who long for shelter beside you, set them safely away from their enemies, ever welcomed by grace. Here ends this altar lesson. Amen.
Listen now to the Gospel of Jesus Christ according to John. Glory to you, O Christ. So the soldiers, their officer, and the Jewish police arrested Jesus and bound him. First they took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was better to have one person die for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter was standing outside at the gate. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out, spoke to the woman who guarded the gate, and brought Peter in. The woman said to Peter, "You are not also one of the man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the slaves and the police had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing around it and warming themselves. Peter also was standing with them and warming himself. Then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple, where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered, "If you have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They asked him, "You are not also one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment the cock crowed. This is the good news. Praise to you, O Christ. Please join me in a moment of prayer. Gracious and loving God, may the words of my lips and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, you who are our rock and our Redeemer. One of the legacies of the Roman influence on Christianity is the imperial dictation, sometimes with the use of torture or the threat of death, that every human must strive to be perfect in every aspect of their lives, but especially as a Christian. For example, I've seen over and over that the way the word righteous or righteousness is translated or perceived by a Christian is as the word perfect. For the past 200 years or so, when preachers would tell their congregants to live righteous lives or to live in righteousness, what was inferred was live perfect lives or live in perfect faith. But that's not what righteousness means at all. In fact, when God called God's people to live righteous lives, God was specifically telling them to care for orphans widows, and for the poor. That's it. Compassion. God was telling God's people to live lives of compassion, not perfection. Perhaps because of all of this, through the years, I have gotten the sense that many Christians view Peter as a bumbling buffoon with an intense anger problem, simply because he wasn't the, quote, perfect disciple. Newsflash to all of us, none of the gospel writers make any of the disciples out to be perfect. In fact, they are all portrayed as deeply human. All that is, except for John's metaphor of the ultimate disciple, quote, the beloved disciple, which I spoke about in my sermon on March 6th. When we allow ourselves to view Peter in such a dismal light, we are simply doing our best to push away the mirror that Peter is for our own lives, especially as John presents him. According to John Shelby Spong, all of the characters in John's Gospel appear to have been assigned symbolic roles. If that is so, then Simon Peter must surely symbolize those in whom the struggle between darkness and light is the most intense, and in whom the ultimate outcome is in doubt until the very end. I wonder how many of us have told ourselves over the years that if we had been there, rather than Peter, and someone had come up to us and said, "You are also one of the man's disciples, aren't you?" that we would believe that we would have stood up straight, looked them dead in the eye, and with courage and confidence said, "Yes, I am." However, we shouldn't beat ourselves up for thinking that, because that's how we were taught to think in church growing up. We were taught to convince ourselves that we were so much better than the disciples, and especially Peter. We are just as deeply human as Peter and the rest. And we are just as loved as Peter and the rest. As John Shelby Spong puts it about this passage about Peter in his book, The Fourth Gospel, Tales of a Jewish Mystic, all of the final discourse that Jesus shares depicts little more than the drama that unfolds inside the life of Peter, who, like all of us, must die to what he is before he can become what he is capable of being. Peter is every man and every woman. His struggle is our struggle. And now, John says to us, his readers, we are ready to watch the story of the cross as it plays out inside of Peter. Jesus is arrested in the garden. He goes to his captors willingly and asks that his disciples be set free. Peter, however, does not choose to depart or to flee. Instead, he is pictured as being drawn like a magnet to the power that Jesus seems to reveal. He draws his sword to defend Jesus and strikes the slave of the high priest, cutting off the man's ear. He will be true to his word. He will die for Jesus. Jesus orders him to put his sword away. For life is never found in a physical struggle to preserve it. Next, through the influence of another disciple, whom Spong reveals as, quote, the beloved disciple, Peter gains access to the court of the high priest. And there Peter is routed by a maid. "Are you not one of the man's disciples?" she asks. "I am not," Peter responds. Survival has trumped loyalty. Peter then watches Jesus be struck by an officer of the high priest for what the officer deemed to have been an insubordinate response. The pain must have been felt as if it were Peter's own. The scene then shifts back to where Peter is warming himself by the fire. Someone in the crowd picks up the maid's attack. "Are you not one of his disciples?" "I am not," Peter responds a second time. The inescapable daggers of human words are all around him. Still another picks up the accusation that is relentless when one seeks to cover one's souls with lies. "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" the new voice inquires. Peter denies again. Bravado is diminished. The crow of the cock is heard. They take Jesus away. And Peter enters the dark night of his soul. Peter wants to become. He does not know how to be, how to live fully. Peter also wants to survive. And that is the deepest drive present in every living thing. In self-conscious human life, the drive to survive locks each of us into a prison of self-centeredness. If survival is our highest value, we organize our lives to meet that ultimate need, and we will do anything it takes to accomplish that final goal. We brag to hide our fear. We lie to cover our inadequacy. We push others down in order to elevate ourselves. We give to no one except insofar as our giving serves our own survival needs. We love no one more than we love ourselves. Our life is bound by our security walls and our defense barriers. To lay those barriers down is to shake with survival-driven anxiety. We must hide to avoid the vulnerability that love requires. We must cultivate an image, a public persona, but we never find the courage to be who we are. That is what is going on in Peter. That is also the true nature of every human life. That is who I am, Spong says. That is who you are. Survival-driven creatures, unable to enter into the fullness of our humanity. The story of the cross is the story of Peter confronting the Word of God. It is the Word which says that we are part of that which is limitless. It is the Word which invites us to come to Him and to find rest from the struggle of becoming and becoming. It is the Word which says we are part of who God is, and God is a part of who we are. It is the Word which proclaims that the life of God is found in our living, and the love of God is found in our loving, and the being of God is found in our very being. John, in this gospel, is asserting that the Word is made flesh in Jesus of Nazareth. It means that Jesus reveals in his life the freedom to live, and that living is not to be at the mercy of every distorting force in life. It means that in Jesus there is a refusal to hide personal identity inside the security of tribal identity. It means that each of us can step outside the prejudices of our cultural roots, which serve to give us a sense of superiority that we think gives us a survival edge. It means that we can refuse to live inside the boundaries of a religious system that tells us that if we practice the things which our religion requires, we can win the favor of the one who has the power to guarantee our survival. It means that the drive to survive can no longer distort our humanity, nor can it compromise our existence. It means that the life of God lives in us. That means that the love of God flows through us. It means that no one is placed beyond the boundaries of that love. No one is placed beyond the boundaries of God's love. It means that, like Jesus, we are free to give our life away, and that this is what the experience of God is ultimately all about. That is John's understanding of the mystical reality that is met in Jesus. Peter wrestles with all of this. He fights, he denies, he flees. But he does not remain in the darkness as Judas did. He finally escapes. He moves ultimately beyond the human to see the meaning of Jesus, where the human and the divine are seen to flow together into oneness. We are not better than Peter. We are Peter. And we are each on a similar path that Peter walked. On our faith journey, we are also called by Jesus to look past the painfully limited three-dimensional view of reality perpetuated by human beings. Humans that are forever scrambling for security, power, and control to become fully secure, ultimate in power, and the only one, in control. In closing, I'm reminded of the scene near the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when Indiana is clutching to the edge of the cliff that's appeared in the temple, reaching for the Holy Grail with his other arm, while his father is desperately trying to pull him up out of the chasm. "Junior! Give me your other hand! I can't hold on! I can get it. I can almost reach it, Dad." Indiana, let it go. I've always felt that when his father calls him by his soul-chosen name, that's when his father breaks through the human dimension of clinging to false security and power and control. That scene makes me cry every time I watch that movie, because I can't help but hear the echo of Jesus asking me to let go of your life in order to learn how to save it, by learning how to be still and know that I am God. Let it go. I now invite you to join with me in singing our next hymn, number 202, in the New Century hymnal, called "O God, How We Have Wandered." And we will be singing all three verses, and Annie will play through the melody for us first. gathered together in a time of prayer and community. Where first we'll take a moment of silence to really listen for God in our hearts. And then I will invite us to lift up our prayers of joys and of concern, either aloud if you are comfortable, or in the silence of your hearts. And we invite those on Zoom, if you would like to share aloud, to unmute yourselves. But let us begin with a moment of prayer, a moment of silence. God of love and of grace, we ask that you hear now our prayers of joys and concerns that we bring with us today.
Prayers for our congregation this week as we continue our discernment and our path forward.
Loving God, receive our prayers.
Prayer of gratitude and joy for having Pam and Frank with us in worship this morning.
A prayer of gratitude and joy for having Pam and Frank Spain with us this morning in person. Loving God, receive our prayers. We continue our fervent prayers for all people who live in war-torn countries, that peace, your peace, may come and may reign. Loving God, receive our prayers. You knew the betrayal in your life, O Christ. One whom you loved turned against you. Our lives are filled with betrayals. Men and women and whole communities have turned against one another. Strengthen us in the way of faithfulness, O Christ, that we may be true to you, to our own depths, and to one another. Strengthen us in the way of faithfulness. In lives where love has been born this day, thanks be to you, O God. In families where forgiveness has been strong, thanks be to you. In nations where wrongs have been addressed, where tenderness has been cherished, and where visions of earth's oneness have been served, thanks be to you. May those who are weary find rest this day. May those who carry great burdens for their people find strength. May the midwives of new beginnings in our world find hope. And may the least among us find strength in our souls, worth in our words, and love in our living. And let us now share together the prayer that Jesus taught us using whatever words you are most comfortable, saying together, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. When we feel overwhelmed by the enormity of the world's suffering, let us remember to be present where we are. These people, this community, this heart in this chest, this ground under our feet. so the needs of the here and now can be met with compassion. Let us bring what we have to God and to each other. We'll join together now in a time of gratitude. You are invited to give online. If you are worshiping online, we also have offering plates available for offering in this place. Let us be together in gratitude. Please join with me in our prayer of gratitude. Holy One, do not let us fritter away our lives or share resources on that which bolsters our egos. Grant us wisdom to invest in our communal flourishing. Bless our offerings and bless our actions. Amen. As we extinguish the light today, this next light, we acknowledge the darkness and pain of violence in the world and to the earth. And let us share together. Draw us together in your love, O God. May our restless hearts not resist you, but continue to search until they find their rest in you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. And let us take a moment of silence to set our intentions for the week ahead, or depending on where your heart and your soul are, perhaps just the day ahead, or even just the hour ahead. Now I invite you to join with me in singing our closing hymn, number 204 in the New Century Hymnal, called "Take Up Your Cross," the Savior said, and Annie will play through it for us first. May the light of God illuminate the heart of your soul. May the flame of Christ kindle you to love. May the fire of the Spirit free you to live this day, tonight, and forever. Amen.
Amen.